Why the smartest mums don't go back to work. They billed the coffee had gone cold again. She stared at it from across the kitchen counter, somewhere between the half-finished coloring book and the bills she'd been meaning to organize for weeks. Another morning, balancing the noise of the house and the quiet questions she kept avoiding. Can I really build something of my own? She wasn't chasing millions. She wasn't even chasing recognition, just freedom. The kind that fits between nap times and school pickups. The kind that doesn't require permission slips or explaining herself to anyone but the mirror. But somewhere along the way, she'd started believing that wanting more made her selfish. That ambition was something you packed away the moment you became a mother, like it didn't belong in the same room as sippy cups and laundry baskets. She scrolled through her phone that morning. Job listings, remote positions, all of them requiring her to shrink her schedule into someone else's 9 to 5, all of them asking her to fit back into a world that hadn't waited for her to return. And that's when it hit her. Maybe the smartest move wasn't going back at all. Maybe it was building something that didn't ask her to choose. But the idea didn't come from a business book. It came from the mess on her kitchen table, from the things she'd been doing all along without calling them skills, organizing chaos, solving problems no one else noticed, creating order out of noise. She thought about the women she'd seen online, the ones who seemed to have it figured out, selling planners, teaching classes, building small shops that somehow paid real bills. She wondered if they'd started the same way, doubtful, tired. With a cold cup of coffee and a quiet rebellion brewing beneath the surface, part of her still felt guilty for wanting more, as if ambition had to disappear when motherhood began, as if dreaming about independence meant she wasn't grateful for what she already had. Maybe success just wasn't meant for someone like her. But then she remembered something her grandmother once said, that the women who change their lives aren't the ones waiting for perfect conditions. They're the ones who start anyway, messy, uncertain, with more questions than answers. So she opened her laptop, not to apply for jobs, but to explore what building might actually look like. What would you have done in her place? The first thing she learned surprised her. According to recent studies, small home-based businesses led by women are growing 40% faster than other segments. Not because of huge investments or fancy degrees, but because of clarity, resourcefulness, the ability to see opportunity where others see obstacles. She realized she'd been looking at everything backwards. She didn't need to become someone new. She needed to recognize who she already was, a problem solver, a multitasker, someone who'd been running the most complex operation she'd ever known without a single business plan. She started small, researching ideas that didn't require her to leave the house or hire a babysitter, things that could grow at her pace, on her terms. She looked into virtual assistants, helping other business owners manage their inboxes and schedules from her kitchen table. It felt doable, practical, like an extension of what she already did every day. Then she considered content creation, not the kind that required her face or her voice, but the kind that told stories, shared knowledge, built connection through words and visuals. She thought about the things she wished someone had told her years ago, the advice she'd give her younger self. She explored digital products, templates, guides, resources that could be created once and sold while she slept. The idea fascinated her, that something she built during nap time could generate income at midnight. She almost gave up, until one message changed everything. A woman she'd never met reached out after seeing a post she'd shared, just a simple observation about motherhood and identity. The message said 3 words that landed like permission. I needed this. That's when she understood. She didn't need to be extraordinary. She needed to be honest, real, willing to share what she was learning as she learned it. Then came the doubt, the kind that whispers louder than failure. What if no one cares? What if this is just another distraction? What if you're wasting time you don't even have? She took a breath, made herself a fresh cup of coffee, and decided that even if she failed, she'd rather fail at something she chose than succeed at something that made her invisible. She started documenting her journey, not as an expert, but as someone in the middle of figuring it out. She shared the setbacks, the small wins, the days when nothing went according to plan, and that was okay. People responded, not because she had all the answers, but because she was asking the same questions they were. She smiled, not because it was easy, but because it was finally hers. She began offering her services, quietly at first, to friends, then friends of friends, then strangers who found her through word of mouth and late-night searches. Her rates were modest, her confidence still building. But every payment that came through felt like validation she hadn't realized she needed. Her workspace was still her kitchen counter, but it no longer felt like chaos. It felt like possibility. Sometimes growth doesn't look like progress. It looks like staying, showing up, refusing to quit on the days when quitting feels like the only logical option. She learned to set boundaries, to tell her kids that mommy was working. Not away, not unavailable, but building something that would one day show them what determination looked like up close. She learned that entrepreneurship wasn't about having it all together. It was about moving forward even when you didn't, about making decisions with incomplete information and trusting that clarity would come through action, not before it. She discovered communities, other mothers building in the margins, sharing resources, celebrating milestones that would seem small to anyone else but felt monumental to them. $5 earned. One client retained. A full day without doubting whether this was all a mistake. What helped her most wasn't just finding the right tools. It was realizing she didn't need permission to start small. She tested different approaches before finding what truly worked. Simple systems, flexible schedules, ways to build without burning out. This isn't about selling you something. It's about sharing what made the path a little lighter, what turned confusion into clarity when she needed it most. If you're looking for that same kind of support, I'll leave some resources below. Not as a promotion, just as an offering from someone who's been where you might be standing right now. She didn't become an overnight success. She became someone who no longer waited for conditions to be perfect, who understood that building something meaningful doesn't require choosing between motherhood and ambition. It requires redefining what success looks like when you're the one holding the pen. Her income grew slowly, then steadily, not enough to retire, but enough to breathe, enough to stop calculating every grocery trip, enough to prove that the quiet rebellion she'd started in her kitchen was more than just a dream deferred. She looked back at the woman she'd been 6 months earlier, the one staring at cold coffee and wondering if she had what it took, and she wished she could tell her what she knew now. That starting is scarier than failing. That doubt doesn't disappear. It just gets quieter when you stop listening. When she poured her coffee the next morning, it was still hot, because this time she wasn't rushing, she was building. One small decision at a time, one boundary at a time, one belief at a time that maybe, just maybe, the smartest thing she ever did was trust herself enough to try. The noise of the house was still there. The coloring books, the bills, the beautiful chaos of a life that refused to fit into neat categories. But now there was something else too. Proof that she could hold multiple truths at once. Be a mother, be a builder, be someone still figuring it out. And that was enough. Tell us what part of her story resonated with you most and where you're watching from. Your journey might just inspire the next one. Tell us which country or city you're watching from. See you in the next video. Bye.